Hello, Tara. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on Mind Bloom. I look forward to hearing your story and sharing your story with the Mind Bloom listeners. I'm sure they will be blown away and mind bloom and all of the things. And speaking of which, what makes your mind bloom, Tara?
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And what makes my mind bloom is being diagnosed at 39 years old with breast cancer
Mm.
and being a nurse and taking care of patients that were breast cancer patients, and then being the patient on the other side and all the information I didn't know, um, and just navigating through that whole world of cancer, breast cancer, and then coming to, which I know we'll get into, but coming to the areola tattooing, which is what I do now, that just blew my mind and blew me away because I just didn't know this was an option back in 2012 and 13, which is so sad because you would think by then
Mm.
everyone would know about this. So that's kind of what just took over my life. And
Yeah.
I ended up leaving my nursing career and founded
Mm.
my company, Pink Ink Tattoo. So that's
Ah,
what,
make
you know,
wow.
just
Yeah.
really.
That makes my mind bloom too. It's crazy and inspiring at the same time. So there's a lot we can talk about. Of course, breast cancer, you choosing a different career and such an inspiring one, and choosing to help women, I suppose, men as well, in this afterlife, this after breast cancer phase of their lives when surgery has happened and they're left, I guess, with a different body and just a new means of being in this world. What were you diagnosed with? Because there are so many breast cancers.
Sure. I was diagnosed. I mean, it was a roller coaster like most women I've met.
Yeah.
It started with this, it became that, and then it ended up being invasive ductal carcinoma. So it had already, broken through and was
Yeah.
starting to spread, but fortunately, it hadn't hit the lymph nodes,
Mm.
and that was, a saving grace for me. And I ended up having a lumpectomy, a bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction. So,
A lumpectomy. You had a lumpectomy first, and then
yes.
yeah. What happened there that first you were recommended a lumpectomy, and then it turned out to be a
Well, I'm pretty aggressive with myself anyway, and I knew immediately when I was diagnosed that my plan was a bilateral mastectomy with or without reconstruction. If that was an option,
yeah,
great. If
yeah.
not, I was ready to accept that. I taken care of patients who had gone through this. I researched. I, just educated myself on the mental aspect, spiritual, and statistics. And for me, a lumpectomy was not what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
but my breast surgeon had different um, plans, and that was her plan. And she's
Mm.
more conservative, breast
Mm-hmm.
conservative. And we just clashed on that. I just felt like she wasn't listening to me. And, you know, I didn't have family history, so I understood all that. And I know the other factors that come into play when, they make that decision. But for me, I felt like this was my body and my choice, and you should listen to what I'm saying. And she just wasn't. And unfortunately, my father passed during this whole time. So as we were waiting for the insurance to cover the prophylactic breast,
Yeah.
um, or the bilateral period,
Yeah.
she called and just said, well, let's get it out of you. Let's
Mm.
just do a lumpectomy, and then we'll fight to do, the bilateral. And at that point, I just felt like she's
Okay.
not listening. I just got to get out of me. I don't want to die. I just want to live, and I have to deal with my dad. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have to go plan his funeral and try to mourn my own father, in this tragic death. And so I did it. And that's when it came back invasive. And then that's when I
Mm.
finally just stood up and I was like, I have to have my voice heard. Like, this is unacceptable. She has to listen to me. So when I went in for my post-op, I just said, hey, Now it's invasive. It's worse than we thought. I got to go. Like, if you can't support me in my decision, then I got to go. I have to find someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of just did a come to, come together and let's work it out. And then we ended up doing the bilateral mastectomies on May 29th, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've met so many women who've gone along a similar path, and unfortunately they didn't stand up and say, hey, this is not. And then, it was worse than they thought, or, things had happened. And I just knew I didn't want to have to deal with that. I'm not saying what I did will ever prevent me from a reoccurrence. I just wanted to be as aggressive as I could for me. I mean, this is a personal decision, and everybody has to make an educated decision, and you go by what your doctor recommends. Of course, they're the doctors. And I just knew for me, though, this was what was best for me.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how many times we talk here on Mind Bloom of self-advocating. Yeah. And how sometimes it is a battle between you and your breast surgeon. Some are more conservative and we want to be more aggressive, or sometimes it's the other way around. It's complicated. Not only is you going through a breast cancer diagnosis and you're under the gun, you want it out immediately, right? You had, in your personal case, the loss of your father as well, which I'm so sorry for. Must have been, wow. Overwhelming, to say the least. And then you're fighting, you're battling, you're standing your ground, but not really. And then you just give in, and then you're subjected to yet another a surgery. I mean, it's not necessary. Usually actually American doctors, because I was speaking with someone yesterday in the UK, and American doctors are usually less conservative than their peers in Europe. So you wouldn't imagine, but hey, there's cases for everything. There's examples. Wow, it's unbelievable. Yeah. For me, and I didn't have breast cancer. I was diagnosed in December with LCIS, which is the lobular carcinoma in situ. They don't consider cancer as well, which for me is also, I know, yes. Oh, yes. That's a whole other, yeah. You need to listen to a few of my episodes to understand what is going on. It's very, very complicated. So it only changes the word from lobular to ductal, or ductal to but it's practically the same thing. It's just a different area in the breast tissue, as you well know. But mine is not considered breast cancer, regardless. I know, regardless. They suggest, they offer that the patient takes tamoxifen or whatever the name is after, if you're postmenopausal, aromatase, or and the double mastectomy is in the horizon. So they recommend a double mastectomy prophylactic for me, and they didn't go that route in the beginning of your treatment for you with an invasive breast cancer. I mean, the multiplicity of approaches and doctors' interpretations and doctors' opinions is what overwhelms us at the end of the day. I mean,
and I think what is so important, you are your best advocate. And I've always said this from the time I finally stood up for myself and I was ready to walk away from her, because nobody else is going to stand up for us. It has to be us. And if we've educated ourselves and we know, what we're going to be mentally and physically able to deal with, then, it's a big decision to say, I want both my breasts cut off. I'm 39 years old. Take my boobs. Please. Nipples and all. Like, that's huge. It's not something you just do lightly. But at the same time, I felt like I also don't want to have to ever deal with that again. And if to be aggressive and remove them, I am certainly going to do it. It's like a family member called and she said, and I had given her a kidney, my sister, 20 years ago. And so she called me when I got diagnosed and she said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to do a bilateral mastectomy. And she goes, thank you. Thank God. Because, it's not your heart. It's not your liver. It's their boobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. People are attached to them. But this was just what happened in my personal life. And I agreed with that. Like, they did their function, what they were supposed to do. I have children. I didn't just wake up and say, I want them gone. I woke up and said, I want to live, and I don't want to deal with this if I don't ever have to again. So they're going. And, it's been 8.5 years. And even today, sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, darn. And my plastic surgeon did a phenomenal job. I mean, when I put clothes on, you cannot even tell. When I take them off, if it wasn't for a 22-inch mastectomy scar across my chest, you really wouldn't. I mean, he did such a beautiful, perfect job. But at the same time, they're not they weren't the ones God made me. And so, sometimes I'll see breast on TV or what, and they're bouncing around, and I get like, darn, I miss real boobs. But I mean, I think that's just something that's human and natural, So I accept me, and mentally I was good with it, and I have no regrets,
It was a trade-off. I mean, your life or your part of your body. Yeah.
And being in that first stage, and doing the aggressive, I did avoid radiation. So I didn't have to, and a lot of people don't know all the, side effects that come along with a radiation treatment as well. It's super important. If that's what you have to do, you should do it. But, you really need to research and learn everything that radiation can affect. They've come a long way. I mean, I see clients now that have had it, and I would never even, I'm almost like, because it's so precise and beautiful now, that the skin isn't as compromised as it was even 6 years ago. So that's a great thing that technology's come so far, that it's sparing, skin and tissue and the organs around it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, because it burns everything.